As I'm riding, I hear something in the woods beside me. Couldn't have been more than maybe 10, 15 yards, just tearing up everything. Tearing up, breaking off limbs, tearing up stuff. I could hear it moving through the woods over the sound of the motorcycle. I look to my left, and here's a Sasquatch in broad daylight walking along the tree line.
This is the Cryptic Creatures Podcast. I am Brian, and with me, as always, is my co-host Todd. What's going on, buddy?
Just getting excited for another show today. We've got Joey coming on to talk to us. Joey was in some law enforcement back in the day when he had his encounters. So it's always good to get. I like to get law enforcement people on.
Military.
Mm-hmm. You know, they're pretty serious, and they're not BSing around about stuff. You know, they're pretty truthful people. So I like getting them on. How you been, man? What's going on with you this week? Anything?
Nothing new. You know, hanging out.
Waiting for it to get warmer, hopefully.
Yeah,
still
hopefully.
Waiting for that to get out.
Today it's supposed to be pretty nice.
Yeah.
Starting this coming week, so.
We need to get out soon, brother, and do some investigations.
Yeah, we got to get that lined up.
Maybe up in Michigan sometime soon here.
Yeah.
Once we get a chance and get out and report back to our people.
That's right. Get some video.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's not waste any more time. Let's bring Joey on and see what he's got to say about his encounters.
All right, let's get him.
Okay. Joey, welcome to the show. Thanks for talking to us.
I'm glad to be here. Thank y'all for having me.
Yeah, good having you.
So you're in Mississippi, is that right?
It is? Yeah, central Mississippi.
Okay. And where did your encounters happen? Was that Mississippi as well?
It was.
Okay. And then how old were you when your first encounter happened?
I was probably around, well, there's one that something happened to me when I was a child. I was probably about 11 or 12. At that point, I didn't actually see the creature when that happened. But the encounters that I've had where I've actually saw the creature, the first one was probably when I was in my late 40s, early 50s.
Okay. Why don't you tell us about the first incident that you had, though, where you maybe didn't see something. Tell us what happened.
When I was a child?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I had come in from school, and I'd asked my mom, I said, Mom, if I go kill a mess of squirrels, I said, will you make some cat head biscuits and scramble up some eggs and cook the squirrels? She said, sure, son. So I got my gun. I headed off. At that point, we had a bunch of property. So I headed off back down to the woods to go squirrel hunting. Well, I'd rode my motorcycle up our field. You went up a hill to get up to the top. I parked my motorcycle there, and I walked up. There was a hardwood thicket that was up to my right. So I walked up in that thicket, and I sat down, and I sat there probably for an hour and a half, and it started to get dark. So I said, well, hadn't seen anything. I said, I'm just going to go on back to the house. So I walked down to get back on my motorcycle, and it sounded like a big man walking through the woods behind me. And my great uncle's land, his land, abutted ours. So I thought it was him. So I hollered his name, and nobody answered. I said, well, okay. So I went to get back on the motorcycle. I heard it again. So I said, well, maybe it's my cousin. So I hollered his name. No answer. I said, well, I'm going to walk around this little copse of trees here and see if I could see anything. So I walked around, and I didn't see anything, no deer, nothing. So I said, well, I'm going to go into the house. So I started my motorcycle up, and I came down the hill, And at that time, to get from where I was back out to the main road, you could either ride through the middle of the field. There was a road that went through the middle of the field, or you could go up by the fence road that would take you up behind the barn. Well, I elected to go that way, so I'm going down through there, and as I'm riding, I hear something in the woods beside me. Probably couldn't have been more than maybe 10, 15 yards, just tearing up everything. I mean, just tearing up, breaking off limbs, tearing up stuff. I could hear it moving through the woods over the sound of the motorcycle. Well, I made it back out to the main road. When I got back to the main road, I stopped and got off the motorcycle, and I walked back up the hill toward the barn, and just to see if I could see anything. And when I got up there, I could hear some very deep, heavy breathing. And I tried to walk around a little bit and see if I could get lined up to see whatever it was, but I never could see anything, but I could hear it breathing. So I got back on my motorcycle and come on back to the house. And that was that, and I didn't think anything about it. At that point, I was thinking, at that age, big hog, bear. We do have some pretty good sized black bears here. A hog, a bear, something along those lines. But as I've gotten older and had more experience, I've come to realize that it was more than likely, a squatch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to ask you what kind of wildlife you have down there. So you have bears and you have hogs.
We got if you ask a game warden down here, they'll tell you we do not have mountain lions, but we do. Black bears, bobcats, and some of the bears can get quite large. I was doing some walking in the woods down one of our national forests, one of our wildlife management areas. Actually, it's about 10 miles from here. And I went up in there one day just to walk during the day, just to walk. So I had an experience there. So I was just walking through there, and I found some bear tracks. At first I thought it was a squatch track. But it turned out when I got close enough to it, I could see that it was a bear track. And the back foot on this bear track was probably, 8 to 9 inches. And the front one was probably, excuse me, probably 6 inches. I mean, we're talking about a 400 or 500 pound bear. I mean, good sized bear. So, yeah. And, of course, coyotes are everywhere. We do have occasionally you'll run into a gray wolf. They're not as not as prevalent as coyotes, of course, but we do have them down here.
Okay. Yeah, nothing like maybe even a bear would make that kind of noise that you're describing that you would hear over a motorcycle. Bears tend to be pretty quiet when they move through the woods, I guess, as pretty quiet as they can.
Exactly.
And I don't think a hog's going to do that either. Did you believe in Bigfoot or know about Bigfoot before any of this stuff happened, Joey?
No, actually, I had watched the Patterson-Gimlin film, just from being on the internet, looking up things. I had came across it a few times and watched it and realized, that looks like a real creature. That doesn't look like that was, I know enough about, I've been in woods all my life, so I know the enough to be able to look at something and say, hey, that's a costume or that's real. And, I'm fully convinced that, the Patterson-Gimlin film is real. And I actually had a chance later on. I know y'all probably familiar with M.K. Davis. He's from here in Mississippi. He does a lot of Bigfoot stuff. Does a lot of video analysis of Patty on the Patterson-Gimlin film, and he and I actually sat down and went through it almost frame by frame, and it's real. But to answer your question, I digress. But to answer your question, I did not believe. I thought there was a possibility. And kind of in my experience, there's three kind of people when you're talking about, Bigfoot, Sasquatch. People that's never going to believe it. If they walked out and he was sitting in the car with them, they're not going to believe in Sasquatch. Okay. Right. And then you've got people that believe there's a possibility of something like that existing. But, until Bigfoot gets in the car with them, they're not going to, believe it. And then there's people like me that have had these encounters, that have seen these creatures, and we know for sure. And I think those are the three categories that people fall into.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question? Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm rambling you.
No, yeah, we agree with that too. There's non-believers, there's believers, and then there's knowers who've seen them and they know they exist. So, yeah, the Patterson film. They even talked to a lot of the Hollywood makeup artists and creators that make these monsters and creatures for movies. And they said back then we could not have probably made or had the technology to make something that realistic looking or that seemed that much like a real thing. They couldn't duplicate what back then what they have now.
Right.
Now they have.
Yeah. They actually interviewed and I forget who it was. But the guy that did the costumes for Planet of the Apes, that I believe it came out in 68, 69, they actually showed him the Patterson Gimlin film and interviewed him and asked him, could you have done that? And he said, no. He said, that's not a costume. That's got to be a real creature. He said, at that point in time, he said, I could not have even created that. Yeah. And this guy was in Hollywood, he was the foremost costume designer that there was. And he said he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Right.
You can see muscle movement and everything on that. I mean, for someone to say that's not real, or that guy that come forward to say that he was the one in the costume, he's so full of shit. So what happened then? What was your next encounter, or what happened later in life to you then?
My oldest son had his mother and I were divorced, and he was living with her. Well, he turned 18. He wanted to come stay with me for a while. He'd gone out on a date, and he was coming in. He came in, it was about 2:00 in the morning, and he's knocking on the door. He had his own little place to stay in there that we had set up for him, and he's knocking on the door, and I'm like, what does this guy want? So I thought something's wrong. So I get up, and it's him. And he's just pacing in the yard. And I said, boy, what is wrong with you? He said, Daddy. He said, as I was coming over the hill there above the house, he said, I thought there was a big old guy standing inside the road. And he said, I slowed down. And he said, as I got close, he said, Daddy, he said, Bigfoot walked across the road in front of me. I said, boy, what have you been drinking and what have you been smoking? He said, nothing, Daddy, I promise you, nothing. So anyway, that kind of sparked my interest. Well, what really got me going is I started doing a little research, and I started going to some of the some local Bigfoot get-togethers, different people, various people, and kind of got tied in with them, and I started doing a little researching with them, and what solidified my belief is that me and Don McDonald, everybody probably knows him as Don off of Killing Bigfoot. Yep. He and I have been friends. Yeah, he and I have been friends for years. So he called me one weekend, and he has always called me Sasquatch. He's never called me by my name. And he called me, he said, Sasquatch. He said, you want to go squatching? I said, yeah, man, where we going? He said, well, let's go up to Tallahassee Wildlife Management Area, which is close to where he grew up, and it's about 10, 11 miles here from my house, probably a little further than that. But anyway, I said, yeah, man. So we went up there, we met, we parked our vehicles and walked back in there. And we're sitting there, and we're just sitting in the road because it's nobody ever hardly goes. It's a wildlife management area, but very few people even hunt up there. It's just a good nature preserve. It's a good place to go walk if you want to walk or something like that. But anyway, I'm sitting facing one way in my chair, and he's sitting facing the other way in his. And we're just sitting there talking. We ain't even got a fire built. It's warm. We're just sitting there shooting the breeze. And he said, man, look, he said, I need you to get up, act like you're doing something. And when you go to sit back down, turn your chair around. I said, okay. I said, well, I got to take a leak. I'll get up and do that. So I got up, walked off a little ways. I come back, I turned my chair around, and I sat down, and I knew what he was doing. I said, what am I looking at? He said, look at 1 o'clock. So I look out in the woods at 1 o'clock, and you can see the creature's probably, I don't know, maybe 50 or 60 foot back in the wood line, standing behind a tree, sitting there swaying. When they stand still, they have to sway because of the way their legs are made. I know you guys are familiar with that, but it's just sitting there, just swaying back and forth, back and forth. And I told him, I said, well, I said, if that one rushes us, I said, you take care of that one. I said, I'll take care of the one behind us, because I guarantee you, if there's one in front of us, there's one behind us too. They don't generally travel alone. But, we sat there and watched it probably for about 30 minutes. And after that, the creature just faded back off faded on back off into the woods. And, we were pretty excited about that.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see any details of it? Was it too dark? Did you just see an outline, or could you see anything?
Too dark. I mean, basically what I could see was, I could see the outline of the creature, tell what it was. There was enough light that I could tell what it was. I was scared to turn a light on it, because I knew if I did, it was gonna boogie on out of there. It wasn't gonna stay around. So I just, we watched as best we could, and I mean, there was no doubt of what it was.
Did you feel scared? Were you fearful at all?
Only a stupid man is not afraid. You're dealing with a wild animal. You don't know what that animal's going to do. I have a healthy respect for these creatures, and it's tinged with a little bit of fear. Of course it is. Now, I mean, this is my personal thing. Although I did appear on an episode of Killing Bigfoot, I don't want to kill one of these creatures.
I was just going to ask you if you ever.
No, I do. I mean, I did. I was actually on that episode as a favor to Don. He wanted, they needed somebody to play a role, so I did. But anyway, I always carry a weapon in Mississippi. If you go into the woods at night, you need to be armed. Simply for the mountain lions, the bears, the coyotes, and things of that nature. You don't go into these woods unarmed. Not if you want to come out every time, because you never know what you're going to encounter. But yes, to answer your question, Todd, yes, I was afraid, but not on the level that I was ready to shoot, or not on the level that I was ready to run, because my curiosity was probably, much more a driving force than the fear was. Now, there has been times that I've been scared to death, and I can tell you about those later on. But
did you notice any smell when these things were that close to you guys?
Yes, we could smell it. I think that's what got Don's attention, because I think he had caught a whiff of something to start with, and he started kind of looking, and I think that's how it caught his attention.
You mentioned about the swaying, and we've heard about that so much, and I always wondered why they do that. They try to stay hidden behind a tree, but yet they're swaying back and forth. What are they doing that you mentioned?
If you've ever watched a gorilla in a zoo try to stand upright for a long period of time, the way that their anatomy, their legs and their feet, the way that it's made, I think it's very difficult for them to maintain their balance. And I think that swaying, it's kind of like us, if we stand in one spot for a long time, you want to shift your weight.
Shifting. Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think in their case, it's it's exacerbated by the fact that their legs are just not designed, to stand in one spot like a human. The way their foot's designed, their knees or legs. If you look at Patty, when she walked, it was with what I call a broke knee posture. In other words, her knees didn't look like they were locking. It was kind of a rolling walk.
Mm-hmm.
Where you watch a human, we plant a foot, we lock our knee, we take a step. We plant our foot, we lock our knee, we take it, we swing the other leg. And I think that they, the way that their anatomy is set up, they can't lock their knees. So that swaying motion is simply them keeping their balance.
I got you. And most people don't know this or don't think about this, and I didn't for a long time. I don't think proportionally their legs are as long as ours are to our body. Their legs are definitely longer than ours and bigger than ours, but proportionally, I think their legs are a little bit shorter on their torso than what you would think they would be, and that's another reason why they kind of keep their knees bent all the time. I think they don't ever lock their knees out when they walk, and with that motion and with how they bring their heel up and they do that kind of motion, I think that kind of what people describe as that floating walking look,
right?
Where their head stays still, doesn't bob up and down like a human's, and just kind of stays in that plane, and they look like they're just kind of gliding across stuff. So,
right. Like I said, I've always kind of a rolling walk because it was, their head just stays straight. But anyway, I think that has a lot to do with it. I think it's an anatomical type thing.
Yeah.
So what else have you experienced, Joey?
Well, the next encounter that I had was my cousin and I, God rest his soul. He just passed away, had a massive heart attack at 54 years old.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Man. He had 110 acres of land. He had cows, and he and I, a lot of times, we would sit out at night, shoot coyotes, keep them off his calves and stuff. And one night he called me. It's kind of in the spring of the year. He called me and said, he said, do you want to sit out, do a little coyote hunting? I said, yeah, man. I said, I'll be down there a little while. So I got on my ATV and I went down there. But it had been raining and it had cleared off. So he said, look, we'll camp we'll build a fire in the catch pen and, we can sit up there. We can see all three of the fields. I said, all right. Well, we were sitting there and they had his dad and him and had some lumber cut up out of some trees off their land, and they had put the slats off the cutoffs. They had piled them up behind the catch pen, the cow catch pen. So we went back there to get some of those. We were going to break those up and burn them. And he reached down and I reached down about the same time and picked one up. When we did, there was a howl and a scream like nothing me and him, either one, had ever heard. And I mean, both of us have been woodsmen since we were little bitty kids. And we both looked at each other at the same time and said, what the hell was that? And we got the wood. We walked on back around, broke it up, got us a fire going. Well, I told him, I said, man, look, I said, I'm going to walk down the hill through the pasture there. I'm just going to walk down and see if I see anything that made that noise. I said, I don't know what that was. He said, I don't need it. So I started walking down the hill and, all I had a little single action 22 Magnum pistol that I used for coyote hunting, and very, very accurate little gun. And that's all I had with me. And I started down this hill. I got my flashlight in my hand. The moon had come out. It was almost like daylight out there. And I got kind of close to there's a little creek that runs right there. And I got down kind of probably 50 yards from the creek, and I'm looking, there's what looks like a tree. And I'm thinking to myself, now I just raked hay there last summer. I said, they ain't no tree right there. So I eased on down. I had my flashlight in my hand. So I eased on, got a little closer. When I got probably 20 yards away, I turned my light on and I came up with the light pointing that direction. And when I did, this tree moved. It stepped off into the creek. And I got closer, and really the only thing I saw was the side of his body and one hand. Now, I got big old hands. I'm 6'4". I got big old hands. But this hand would have made my hand look like a child's hand laying in mine. Well, at that time, you ain't never seen a white boy move that fast. I went back up the hill. And I told my cousin, I said, let me get your AR. Man, you ain't getting my AR. I said, man, let me borrow the AR. I said, there's something down there, but I ain't got no. He said, if you want to go explore, he said, go to your house and get a bigger gun. I said, well, I said, okay. So I got back on my ATV. I come up to the house, got a shotgun. I went back down there and I walked down and I looked around where he had been standing, but I didn't see any tracks or anything. And, that was that experience. And then on another occasion, he and we had a fire built down at the bottom of one of the fields there, kind of in a corner between, we had woods on two sides of us, and we were looking at the field back, that way. And there's something, we'd heard a couple of screams, and then something come through the woods at us, man. It sounded like somebody driving a bulldozer through the woods. And I mean, it came right up to the fence line. And we had one of these game sensors that'll tell you, off the heat signature how big something is. And we took it and pointed it, and it went completely off the scale. But you asked me a while ago, had I ever been scared? Yeah, I was scared. And I'd already gone down on one knee, and I'm like, my cousin's like, what you going to do? Because he was trying to get his AR out of his ATV. He said, what are you going to do? I said, man, if it crosses this fence, I'm going to shoot it because I don't know what it is. And, but it stopped. And we couldn't see it, but it, man, whatever it was huge. It was huge. And that wasn't his property. So I couldn't go over there and look for tracks or anything because, they have that land posted. So I couldn't go over there and look. So I didn't.
How tall do you think it was, Joey, when you saw it? You said you thought it was a tree.
I would say probably close to 8 foot, probably 3.5 foot wide at the shoulders. I mean, it was a pretty massive creature, but it moved quickly. To be as large as it was. Then, I had an experience at, Chickasaw Wildlife Management Area down south of, Laurel, Mississippi. My wife and I had bought a new rifle, and at that time, we had this house, but we had a house in town that we lived in as well at that time before she retired from teaching. And, so I told her, I said, look, I need to sight this new rifle in. So I called the game warden that's over that wildlife management area. I said, hey man, I need to come out there and sight in a rifle. Where can I go, to do it? And he asked me where I was going, and I told him. And I went back to an area where I had heard some screams and stuff before. And just because I was familiar with the area and I knew where I was going. So got back down in there and parked the car at a turnaround. And my wife and I walked back down. We walked down in a hollow, and I put up a target. Got back about 100 yards. Well, I got down in that valley so that it's kind of like a berm. The hill behind me in front of me made a berm, so the bullets, I didn't want to shoot nobody. Yeah. And so I shot probably 7 or 8 times, sighting the scope in. I got through, and I told my wife, I said, come on, let's walk back up. So we walked back up to the car, and I laid the gun in the back seat. Well, at that time, I had a 38 special police revolver, and I had it on, and that was mainly for snakes and whatnot. But anyway, we walked around the car, and I sat there, and I told my wife, I said, does it feel like somebody's watching us? She said, it kind of does. I said, yeah, I get that feeling too. I said, there's something in these woods. So I said, I thought I said, get in the car. I'm just going to walk around a little bit. So I kind of walked down the road a little bit in front of the car, and then I walked back, walked around, and probably after about 30 minutes, the feelings of being watched. Now, I never smelled anything, which was really, really strange in this situation. It could have been the way the wind was blowing. I didn't really pay that much attention to, the wind direction at that time. I said, well, I don't feel it anymore. I said, we're going to go. I got in the car, I pulled off, and I probably went maybe 100 yards, and off to the left, there was, it was open with some sparse trees, and I looked to my left, and here's a Sasquatch in broad daylight walking along the tree line. I turned to my wife I said, she had already seen it. She was already all the way up on the dashboard, with her head looking. And, I looked at her. I said, now you tell me what you saw. I didn't want to influence what she had saw. I tried to stop. When I stopped, I went to back up and try to get a picture. By the time I did that, got my phone up, got ready to take a picture, he turned and went into the woods. Anyway, I asked her, what did you see? She said, I saw a 7 to 8 foot tall gorilla-like creature, black fur. She said he probably weighed between 500-600 pounds, and she perfectly described a Bigfoot encounter. She did. And I said, and that's exactly what I saw too. And she looked at me. She said, well, you're not crazy after all. She said, they do. Yes. Wow. And so that was validation for me. She's like, I don't know why you go sit out in the cold weather in the middle of the night. I said, well, now you know.
Yeah.
That was a pretty cool, that was a good one.
Yeah, that's amazing.
How far away from you do you think this thing was from your car?
He was probably standing no more than maybe 30, 40 foot from me. Oh, that's why there was no smell. And that's really that was the strange thing, man. There was no smell. So he may have been further away, but it's one of those situations where somebody's there, somebody's watching you. And mm-hmm. I wasn't expecting it to be a Bigfoot. There used to be a lot of transient people that camp down in that area. And I kind of figured, I got one of these transient folks watching me, and we don't come out and decide to try to rob me. I really don't want to shoot him. But no, it was a critter.
What's your wife think about him now? Does she go out at all, or is she too scared? Does she want to stay in? What's her thoughts?
My wife is not going to go sit out in the middle of the night. It's either too cold or too hot. If she goes, she's going to sit in the vehicle, and and I usually park a ways off and walk in, so she doesn't go too much. Now, if I go down my cousin's property down there, she'd probably get in the side by side and ride down there with me. She's not going to go on an expedition like I would.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Let's talk about the Killing Bigfoot guys again. Do you know anyone else in that group, or just Don?
I mean, I've met, like I said, we filmed that episode, and that's when I met them. I didn't really know any of them personally except for Don. And he, like I said, he asked me to be in that episode. I mean, it's a scripted program, just like Finding Bigfoot's a scripted program. Right. People think that these are not scripted, but they are. And he just asked me to be in there, and I did. And a bunch of really nice guys. I mean, and they actually, it was the producer's idea. It was either the producer's idea or the network's idea. They're the ones that wanted to call it Killing Bigfoot. They didn't want to call it that. And I think that's really had a lot to do with why it only lasted one season. I think that put people off. And
right.
But there's a bunch of really good guys. I mean, but like I said, I didn't really know anybody personally until just, I'd seen a few of them here and there at Bigfoot get-togethers, but, I'd never really got into their inner circle. Me and Don, we just grew up in the same neck of the woods and kind of had that commonality of being from, I'm from one county and he's from the next county up originally. So we kind of just struck up a friendship and, but a bunch of good guys.
Those guys are definitely into Bigfoot, obviously, even though the show might be scripted. But are they planning on trying to get one and kill one for proof? Is that their whole goal in reality, or
the premise of the show? And truthfully, it's like we've always said. There's nobody, the scientific community as a whole, no matter how many plaster casts you bring back, no matter how many recordings, no matter how much video or whatever you take to the scientific community, until you can provide them with a body, mainstream science is going to say this thing does not exist. Okay. Right. So I think that the only way any of those guys would really take a specimen would be if it was being aggressive, if it was killing livestock, threatening people, killing, pets, something like that, and it couldn't be run off. At that point, yeah. I mean, at that point, I would probably take a specimen. If it's becoming a true nuisance and a danger to humans, at that point, you don't have much choice. It'd be the same thing with a bear. If I had a bear around my house messing with my dogs and different things, I mean, I'd call the game warden and say, hey, y'all need to come catch this bear, because if you don't, I'm going to catch him for you. I'd just have to take care of it. I think that's the same thing. I mean, these guys didn't have a bloodlust for Bigfoot or anything. I think they just like me, if it was a nuisance, if it was a danger to people, they would. But other than that, I mean, no. I mean, like I said, me and Don, we went on several, we've been squatching them a lot together, and he's never, even we've seen one, he's never pulled a weapon and said, I'm going to take this specimen. So no, I don't think, like I said, Hollywood and TV networks, they have their own agenda.
Right. Yeah. We've talked about that many times.
Well, people get so worked up about this whole killing one. What it comes down to is that if we want to know these things exist, a body's going to have to be brought in. Just like any other animal that we've proven existence of. I mean, I don't know if we when we discovered the mountain gorillas, I don't know that we killed one of them right away, but eventually,
they killed two of them.
Did they?
That's how they knew they existed.
So any animal out there, a tiger, anything that has the capability of harming a human being, obviously, but if they wanted to prove the existence, they probably took a body, and that's what people don't understand. All these animals that are in zoos, originally, they had to kill one. And, and to learn about the animals that are on this earth, and to learn about our earth, and to have the knowledge that we want to have, that sometimes is required, and it's probably going to be required too in the Bigfoot world. Unfortunately, some people don't like it, but that's probably what's going to have to happen.
If you go to any museum that has panoramas or whatever of creatures, that do exist or didn't exist, some of them are stuffed. They're mounted.
Right.
Like I said, I don't want, if he leaves me alone and interacts peacefully with me, I'll interact peacefully with him. But at the point that if I wake up one night and my dog's outside or barking, I walk out there and there's a Bigfoot trying to get one. I mean, I may shoot in the air the first time. If he don't leave, then we're going to have the proof we need, because I'm going to leave him laying right there, and that's not because, like I said, I hunted a lot in my younger days, but as I've gotten older, I'm 60 now. And as I've gotten older, I have a deeper reverence for life than I did when I was younger. Just to go out in the woods, I had a lot rather. I'll be honest with you. I wish someone asked me, what would you love to happen with your encounters with Bigfoot? I said, I'd love to befriend one. I would love to be able to be comfortable enough. Who was the lady that got in with the mountain?
Jane Goodall.
Jane Goodall. She was able to gain their trust and actually be kind of accepted as part of their troop. And I that's what I would love to do with Bigfoot. I would love to be able to get to the point where they trusted me enough to let me interact with them, film them, take some pictures.
Any serious Bigfoot researcher is probably thinking the same way.
A lot of people, the general public, you don't know how much harassing I get at work about being a Bigfoot.
Yeah, we do realize we get it too.
Yeah, we get it too.
Yeah. Well, they say, how long you been a Bigfoot researcher? I said, I'm not a Bigfoot researcher. They said, what are you? I said, I'm a squatchologist.
I like that.
Nice. I like that one.
Squatchologist.
They pick at me, but then again, I never will forget. I was in law enforcement for a long time, and I worked in the prison system. And I had my sergeant. He was a big old black guy. I mean, man, this dude, everybody in the prison feared him. The inmates feared him. And he kind of, when I got into it, he took me under his wing. He found out that I did Bigfoot research. Man, we'd sit up there, we worked night shift, and sometimes 3 or 4 hours I'd sit there and he'd talk to me. He'd ask me questions, and I'd tell him, about my encounters and other people's encounters. And I said, Sir, you need to go with me one night. I said, we'll go down. I know some spots where we probably, if nothing else, will at least hear a scream or some tree knocks or something. And he looked at me. He said, this is after we'd worked together for a while. And he looked at me and he called me Hawk because my last name was Hawkins. He said, Hawk, he said, man, I love you like a brother. He said, we have fought together. We've been through a lot of stuff in this prison together. I said, yes, sir, we have. He said, I've always had your back and you've always had mine. I said, yes. But he said, have you ever watched a scary show? I said, watched a lot of them, sir. He said, was there a brother in there? I said, yeah. He said, who was the first person that got killed in that scary show? I said, well, come think of it, it's usually the black guy. He said, that's why I'm not going in the woods with you. He said, we got down in there and one of them things about. He said, I can't run. He's kind of heavy set. He said, I can't run like I could when I played football. He said, I'd be the first one it got. I said, Sergeant, I ain't gonna let nothing happen to you. He said, Hawk, he said, man, I love you, but I ain't going.
He's not taking your word for it, huh?
Yeah, he would not take my word for it.
Yeah. Obviously, you want to see one again. You're still going looking for these things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We've had kind of a weird winter here in Mississippi. Most of the time, I do most of my research from about the end of March on into July. I do go out some in the wintertime, but as I've gotten older, I can't take that cold like I used to.
Yeah.
There's a lot of difference between 45 and 60. In my 40s, I'd go out there and stay all night, 20-degree weather, sit in a chair, be quiet, just listen, put the cameras up, turn the voice recorder on, and just sit there. Been down in the swamp by myself, doing what I do, but as I've gotten older, man, I can't take that cold like I want. So I've started, I usually do it in the springtime, probably down here. Usually it'll start to warm, it's already starting to warm up, but by the 1st of April, we still have cool nights, but not cold nights. And then the days at 75, 80 degrees. And I have a theory that in the wintertime, if I was a critter that lived outside like that, in the wintertime, I would forage at night while it's cold, and I would sleep during the day when it was warm. And I think that's what these creatures do. And then as it begins to warm up, I think they sleep at night and then they forage in the daytime. Because if you've ever noticed, most of the video that has been recorded, various things, it's in the spring of the year when they see these daylight sightings and they get this video. Yeah, they don't ever get it in the dead of winter. Sometimes, but not very often. And I think these are very intelligent animals. I think they have a relatively high mental capacity. You get in with these people and I don't mean to talk bad about these people, but I'm sorry. Bigfoot does not ride on a UFO. Okay. He does not walk through portals. This is a creature, that I truly believe is a creature that has adapted to live in this terrain. And I think probably it is a descendant of Gigantopithecus. Well, that's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is.
For a pro country boy like me, it's an animal. It's a highly intelligent animal, but it's an animal. And sometimes people just, they go off on tangents and, oh man, I saw I saw Bigfoot, the UFO. He was in there with Elvis. You know, I mean, come on, people.
Yeah. Right.
But most of your people that believe that have not spent a lot of time out in the wilderness. They weren't raised in the woods and didn't roam before. Guys, look, when I was 10 years old, I had a .22 rifle and a Bowie knife, and I'd leave on a Saturday morning at 8, 9 o'clock. Mom and Daddy wouldn't see me light. The lit got dark. I mean, I stayed in the woods. I knew these woods around here where I live. I knew them like the back of my hand by the time I was 12 years old. And there's not many creatures that I can't tell you what sound it is that they make, or if it makes a sound, identify it. But I'll tell you, when you hear a squatch scream, it is like nothing else you've ever heard. And I've heard screams, howls, whoops, and tree knocks. And I've had them answer me with tree knocks, man. I get me an old hickory stick, find me a good oak tree in the woods, and give it 3 good whacks, and sit there, and you way off in the distance, you'll hear them answer back.
Yeah, I don't get the whole thing with people going out at nighttime all the time. I know they think these things are nocturnal or can be, but if I'm going to go looking for one, I want to be able to see it, and I want to see it in daylight. Yeah. And I don't want to be out in the dark, because that just makes it 3 times more scary. And you just don't know how close you're going to get to one if you do see one. So, yeah.
I've got night vision. I hadn't got infrared yet because my wife won't let me spend the money. But no, it's just infrared to me. FLIR is something I'd love to have, but the one that I want is about $5,000, and I'm just, I'm a poor man. I'm not going to go borrow $5,000 just to buy something. I've got night vision, and like I said, I think that they're both nocturnal and diurnal. I think that it depends upon the temperature. I truthfully do.
For all we know, some of them might be nocturnal and some of them aren't. Some of them might like to sleep all day and some might not. Some might get up early, You just don't know that.
That's it. I mean, when you start trying to put something in a box and say this is a behavior and this is not a behavior, I don't even think that, I don't even think a biologist would do that. I think they would say, hey, this thing could be, they're like humans. I worked in law enforcement. I worked at night for so long, for a long time. I sleep all day. On a day off, so I'd sleep all day, stay up all night. It was just the way my internal clock had gotten set to, and I couldn't, I'd wake up about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, stay up all night long. Come daylight, I'd go to bed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's something I notice about even myself or humans in general. Sometimes if people are off work or on vacation, they tend to stay up later, sleep in a little bit longer than normal. Although, Brian, I know you wake up early. I wake up early just because of our work every day. But still, you'll get into that pattern if you, don't hold a job or something that you don't do religiously every day. Just kind of human nature to stay up later, stay up through the night a little bit, and get up later.
Right.
You think you'd follow the sun, but you don't.
That's like now. I run the residential division of the roofing company, so I have to hold a safety meeting every morning with the crews before they go out. So I'm usually up about 5:30 every morning. I get between 6:30, 6:45, something like that, and have a safety meeting, get everybody lined out. I go to bed early now. Most of my day is just, on the phone and on the computer and out in the field checking on things. So when I get home, I go to bed relatively early. But when I was in law enforcement, like I said, man, I work nights most of the time. You work in a prison, you'd rather be there when everybody's asleep than when they're up.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just a lot easier. There's a lot of radical theories out there about these creatures.
There really are. We've heard a lot of them.
I'm sure you have. I had a guy tell me one time Bigfoot was created by aliens to mine gold. Because they need gold to power their spaceships or starships or whatever you want to call them. Mm-hmm. And when they had, accumulated enough to do them, they just left Bigfoot here and they went back to wherever they came from. And I'm like, dude, that's some good stuff you smoke.
heard so much. And you kind of wonder when people say they saw lights or something like that, what the hell it is. I don't know if it's just their mind just kind of trying to reset, itself, and that's why they're kind of blanking out or whatever. Who knows? But yeah, I tend to believe they're probably more of a natural flesh and blood creature.
They are. To me, that's my opinion, opinions are like buttholes. Everybody's got one. They all stink, but that's my opinion.
Right.
I don't see anything preternatural or supernatural about these creatures. They are, a flesh and blood creature that, like I say, I think it's that adapted to live. That's just like here in the South. If you go out west, if you go out where the Patterson-Gimlin film was, filmed in Northern California, and you get up into Northwest Territory of Canada and back up in that area, most of the ones that are seen, they're 9-10 foot tall, weigh 800-900 pounds. They're huge.
Mm-hmm.
Well, down here, the ones that we have are more akin to the swamp apes. They are, they're usually between 6 and 7.5 foot, and they're not nearly as big. They're 300-400, maybe 500 pounds. I think it has to do, if you live in an area where there's 2,000 pound grizzly bears and the terrain is very tough, you're going to get bigger.
Yeah.
And I think that's why they are of such a tremendous size out there. To get back down here, and your biggest bear is probably 500 pounds. If a gorilla has the strength of 10 men, and they're, and they are an offshoot of gorillas, then you can handle a 500 pound bear with your bare hands. You ain't got no problems.
And it's relatively flat terrain down there too.
And it's flat terrain. We got some hollows, but it's not like it is out west. Even the mountains. If you go up into Arkansas, to the mountains up there, or even into North Georgia and Tennessee, into the Appalachians or the Great Smoky Mountain, it's still not the same type terrain as it is in the mountainous regions of Northern California and Oregon and Colorado and the Northwest Territory of Canada. Man, those are extreme conditions.
Yeah, I've always said that environment has a lot to do with the evolution of species.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Joey, we thank you for coming on and speaking with us today, man. It was a lot of fun, and we appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, that's very cool.
No problem. Guys, if you want some stories or anything, just let me know. You got my email address.
Yeah, we'll get back in touch with you for sure. And if you're out there and you happen to come across anything else, you got to get a hold of us and let us know what's going on down there.
I will. If I get the video, you'll be the first ones I contact. We'll get it on the show.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
All right.
All right, man. Well, you take care.
Yes, sir. Y'all have a good day now.
We'll talk to you later.
Bye, Joey.
See you, Joey. He's definitely had a lot of experiences.
Yeah, some really cool ones too. Yeah.
I forgot to ask him about the detail of the last one's face, if you got a chance to look at that. But
yeah.
Pretty close. I'm sure he probably did, unless it was broadside. It was cool when he talked about his wife seeing it. I always say that I want my wife to see one probably more than I want to see one. So she'll
same here.
Believe, and talking about the proof of all Bigfoot and bringing a body forward existence. I don't need that either. I just want to see one.
Right.
So I can say that last 1%, that 99.9 that I do have, that 0.1%, that because I haven't seen one.
That little bit of shadow of a doubt.
I can just put that aside.
Can be gone, and that will be 100%.
I want to be a knower, not a believer. Right?
That's right. Yep, that's right. 100%.
So, man, we're getting more listens every week. We appreciate it.
I know, it's
everybody.
awesome. Yes. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
Yep. We really appreciate it. Like to keep putting out as good a content as we can for you, and looking for good encounters. So if you know anybody who's had an encounter, or if you've had an encounter, come talk to us. Be on our show. Get a hold of us. info@cryptidcreatures.co. We are on Twitter.
Yep. Also, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
They can call us now, right, Brian?
Yeah. 8775 Dogman.
Right on. Sounds good. I appreciate you hanging out with me again, sir.
Oh, man, always fun.
Good time. Love listening to these guys' encounters and hearing about these things.
Yep.
All right. I will talk to you next time. Until then, you take care.
Yep. See ya.